I wanted to talk about now is a session that we're calling Equity Through Action. So how can we actually start to get people around the world engaged? And the first person that we're going to hear from is Sylvio, who's going to tell us about opportunities for the HCA to engage in São Paulo in Brazil.
It's a great pleasure to be here today. And I have to thank quite a few people. So I thank Musa, I thank Alex, I thank Elliot for making my visit possible. Thank you very much. This is, I'm not a cell biologist. So what do you expect me to talk about HCA? In fact, I'm a physicist, theoretical physicist. It's even worse. So I'm not talking about, cell biology. But the thing I want to talk to you is to show you that we do have an opportunity, as my title suggests, as an open window for integration with a continent. So this continent can be either Brazil, because it's such a huge country, but it can also be an opportunity to radiate to other countries in Latin America or in South America. And of course, for that, by doing that, we reach a region that is underrepresented as far as I could see so far. So, if you look at the mission of the Human Cell Atlas, which is really, interesting, and I would say a great challenge. So there are two things that call my attention. One is to create comprehensive reference maps of all human cells. That's a great challenge indeed. And that points mostly to the academic part. But if you look at the other one, it says that it's also for both understanding human health and diagnosing, monitoring, and treating disease. So you can see also an opportunity for applied research. So when you look at these points, I want to bring you two aspects. And that is the opportunity that we could show to you by the University of São Paulo, on the first hand, in order to bring new diseases that had not been talked before, at least not so far. So if you look at the first calls, I was informed here that the previous John Zuckerberg initiative, so the open calls, could not include Latin America. The situation is slightly changed now because there has been some opportunities in Brazil. So if you look at the characteristics of Latin America, you can see a very particular mix of population. If you look at Brazil in particular, these are photographs of many Brazilians. Some are well known, some are less known, but you can see the diversity and the combination of different aspects, including Europeans, Africans, and so on. These are on the origin and give the diversity and the richness of the country. So both in culture, but also in opportunities, I could say. Now, when you look at also the tropical diseases, there are some endemic diseases in Brazil that could be a good opportunity in the sense of the applied research. We have research, interesting groups working in leishmaniasis, Chagas disease, and some emerging tropical virus. So this could give you, even if you look at the map cells, gives you an opportunity for biomarkers. And in particular, when you consider the possibility of application, these are interesting applications, the so-called neglected diseases, which are not that much neglected these days as they were before. So what I want to talk to you is to present to you an opportunity to reach Latin America or South America through Brazil. But of course, I can only offer you the possibility and the interaction with our university and through that, the country. Now, as I said, there's never been Latin America before, but the situation has changed since a couple of months before, when there was this mapping, there was this meeting, thanks to these three persons that visited us, Musa Milanga, Jonah Kuhl, and Alex Chalek. And this was due to the strength of Lúcio Freitas. So that was the first time that we got in contact with the Human Cell Atlas. And we got very excited with the opportunity. So we want to be part of that. And in fact, there is now the HCA Brazil. So the idea is to strengthen this and make even a stronger collaboration and look at the opportunities that we can offer both HCA to Brazil and we could also offer to the HCA. I should also mention two other Brazilians in the audience. That's Pedro, that's right there, and also Patricia Severino, who's also involved in these efforts. Now, let me tell you a few words about Brazil for those of you who may not know. Now, these are sort of, some boring numbers, so I will try to go in diagonal, so to say. So Brazil has an area that's 80.5 million square kilometers. So that's what we say, it's essentially a continent in terms of size. And it covers about 50% of South America, almost 50% of South America. So there's a large population, and interesting enough, 43% of the population of Brazil is under the age of 30 years, which means there is enormous prospect for the future. It is true that this number is decreasing because of longevity that is increasing, but it still is a sizable number. So São Paulo itself is a state, and the city, the capital is the city of São Paulo. São Paulo has 3% of the area of the country that I have circled there, and 22% of the population. What makes São Paulo distinct is the fact that 40% of the economy comes from the state of São Paulo. So one state produces 40% of the economy and the scientific production. Now there are three state universities. One is the USP, University of São Paulo, that I represent. And there are two others, the Unicamp, University of Campinas, and Unesp, University of the State of São Paulo. The University of São Paulo is the largest of them all. It has a faculty number of almost 6,000 faculty members, almost 90,000 students, 60,000 undergraduates, 30,000 graduates. So the budget of these universities are protected by the law of the state. So a certain percentage of the tax revenue of this state is given to the university. As this is, of course, as I just mentioned, the strongest, economically speaking, state in the country, it gives you very strong universities. And further to that, they are autonomous. So to give you an example, the budget of the University of São Paulo, USP, the current rate is not very favorable, but would be today something like $1.2 billion a year. Now, the state of São Paulo leads the investment of science in Latin America. That's one state. And that state has three state universities I just mentioned. So if you look at the plot there, what you see is in terms of publication, a comparison between São Paulo, the state of São Paulo, and some countries in Latin America. So you see that in terms of number of publications, I'm not talking about quality, and I don't want to make any fuss about this. I just want to show you the numbers and the strength of these numbers. So you can see that the state of São Paulo is producing more than the entire country of Mexico, which is a very productive country. And the third position comes Argentina. If you just look at the University of São Paulo, not the state university, just that particular university that I'm representing here, it would be the third largest publisher in terms of scientific publication in Latin America, second only to Brazil itself and to Mexico. You see below the plot here the investment that has been made in the state of São Paulo. So that produces two things. One is, of course, stability that allows you to make plannings, and the other one is stability for some years produces science. Science is very, let's say, it's very amenable to stability. If you want to make good results, you should have stability in the finances. That's what the state is producing now, opposite somehow to what's happening in the federal government. Now, I'm sorry to show you this, but just want to tell you the size of the things that happen in São Paulo. As we normally say, it's a macroscopic university. So the University of São Paulo in 2015 was considered by the Clarivate in terms of number. Again, it's just number of publication. It was the fifth most productive research institute in the world. The Leiden ranking recently for 2019 put the University of São Paulo in the 80th position. So that's quite impressive, I should say. But we have a faculty number of almost 6,000 faculties, I said. So we are talking about large numbers anyway. But there are two things that we are somehow worried about. One is to increase the impact, and the other one is to increase visibility. I bet that most of you perhaps did not know these numbers related to the University of São Paulo. But when it comes to impact, I'm not talking about bibliometric impact. I'm talking about social impact, economic impact, and health impact. And for doing this, of course, we have also to participate in important international projects. We do participate in some international projects, several of them, particularly in the area of physics, astronomy, and so on and so forth. But of course, participate in a world project related to mapping the human cell is of course another very important, I would say, international project that we are looking to participate. Now, when it comes to large, long-term projects, there is one particular project that's sponsored by FAPESP. FAPESP, opposite to the funders of the federal funders, like the National Research Council and so on, FAPESP is a funding from the state of São Paulo. It's a state funding agency. And again, their budget is protected by the constitution of the state. So 1% of the tax revenue of the state of São Paulo goes to FAPESP. To tell you a number, FAPESP also made investments in the early days, so it gets both from what comes from the revenue and also what comes from the investment. So today FAPESP, delivers to projects about $500 million a year. So this is one example of the project, that are long-term projects. It's called Research Center in Engineering. I'm sorry it's in Portuguese, but anyway, it's Research Center in Engineering, engineering in the broad sense. So these are projects that are supported for 10 years. The idea is to have one industry. For instance, you can see the Shell there, and there is a Center for Gas Innovation and CO2 abatement, which is one serious problem. So these projects work in such a way that the company, the industry, puts $1, FAPESP puts another $1, and the university puts $2 in soft money. So once you have approved this, there are 4 of them in São Paulo, at the University of São Paulo. These are these 4 that are related to gas innovation, biological control in agriculture, and there's one for well-being, and a 4th one for new energy sources. Now this is an interesting thing because it supports you for 10 years. Very recently, we have approved through our office of research in São Paulo, I'm sorry that it's in Portuguese, but it's artificial intelligence. Because I just want to show the newspaper, it was a big fuss when I approved this. The University of São Paulo creates a research center in artificial intelligence. On the right, you see Brazil will have an advanced center for artificial intelligence. And that's one of these projects, Research Center for Engineering, in broad sense, as I said. And that was done with the IBM, FAPESP, at the University of São Paulo. And now I want to point to the possibility of support in that sense. If you can find some industry that is interested in research in cell biology, we could have a project for long-term duration that could support such an endeavor. So the possibility is open, and of course we should perhaps discuss on how we could proceed on this. Now let me say a few words about equality and equity. This is a cartoon that's not exactly the one that was showed, that's taken from, this is similar but not the same. The USP is normally adopting this quota system, both social and racial, for entering the university. But I don't want to talk so much about these things in particular, but I should mention one example, is that at the university, 11,000 new students come every year. So there's a program that includes 5,000 fellowships for undergraduate research, and that's based on social condition. So you stimulate students that have a lower social condition to enter the university, and of course you have to support them to stay there successfully. And that's one of the programs that we have that's for giving fellowships for undergraduate research. Some actions and commitments that related to somehow what we have been discussing here, and I have to say one in particular, is that we promote open science. So we are doing an enormous effort in the sense that makes science transparency in the sense of this open science. So we have a multi-user platform that allows you to have an equipment in one place and it's open and visible for some other to make use of that equipment. We have a repository for sharing data, and we have also a repository for publication that respects, of course, all the copyright conditions. We promote interaction with the society. There is one program that's called USP Talks, and that's to go downtown São Paulo every once in a month, and we give a talk on an updated subject, and that's given to the general public. It's open and given at the center of the main avenue in São Paulo, that's Paulista Avenue. We have been discussing many things since the gender from the point of view of social, the gender problem from the condition of social, from the condition of biological and medical, some of the subject, the origin of the universe, so it's explained to the general public. We are now preparing an open call for citizen science. That is to say, one faculty member of the university apply for research that involves the regular citizen outside the university campus. There is another one that's called Vem pra USP, which means come to USP. In Brazil, what normally happened for something that happened a couple of dozen years ago, that the public school are not to the same level as the private school, but I'm talking about secondary school. So this program is aimed at hitting the students from secondary public school so that they can aim and enter the university. Just to give you an example in the next slide. So we also have other concerns, and the one that we have some concern recently is the question related to the planetary health. So there's a Planetary Health Alliance that meets every year, and there was 3 meetings before. There was one in Harvard, one in Edinburgh, and one in Stanford. So the next and the fourth one is going to take place at USP in 2021, where we're going to discuss the broad aspects of the planetary health. Talking about coming to USP, you can read there on the bottom, in 2018, nearly 50,000 students were hit by coming to USP in a way or the other. So this is just to represent you, in addition, that we have multi-user equipment. So I have these USP Talks, you can see this house is crowded, and you have the sharing of the equipment. Finally, I want you, instead of talking about, showing numbers and numbers and numbers, I prepared a video. So to finish my presentation, I just want to show you a video with the numbers of the University of São Paulo. And I hope it works.
I'm Julie from Tanzania. So I also work on sickle cell disease, and one of the things that we've learned a huge amount from Brazil is from REDS, which is a collaboration that was is funded by the NIH, but it builds on the blood transfusion service where Brazil provides sickle cell services to patients through blood transfusion services. So they've really built one of the most efficient systems for service delivery as well as research. So I think in terms of with this new initiative that's being launched, I think Brazil will be in a very strong position to be in leadership about this. The second thing is that's also learning, and I think there's potential there for HCA. I think the way that Brazil partners with countries is through government. And so they have been working very strongly with, for instance, governments, again, this is specifically in sickle cell disease, governments in Ghana as well as Tanzania. And one of the things that we've seen as a model that's very useful, and I think it goes back to what Yolanda was saying, is that they have very strong government links, but then they also try and ensure that there's very strong implementation partners. So it would be great to kind of explore this for HCA if this is something that you want to explore.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to hear that you already have some collaboration, that you have such a positive image of the collaboration. You know, I should mention that you know, when it comes to health in general, there are many, you know, because universities is spread over 8 different campuses, and you repeat institutes sometimes. You know, you have a physics institute at the capital, São Paulo, but we have also in São Carlos. So we have 2 medical schools, which are very, very productive, and we have an Institute of Biomedical Center, that's where I had this meeting, and there's an Institute of Biology. And they are really very, very aggressive in terms of collaboration. So I'm very glad to hear that, and of course, if I can do anything to add on that, I would be very grateful to assist you. Thank you very much.
Sylvio, thank you so much for a really, really interesting talk. I was wondering, in terms of building a center around the HCA, how do you see the relationship between USP and outside the borders of Brazil, or what role would you see the kind of human cell atlas-centric center, like the ones you kind of suggested in your talk?
Thank you for that question. You know, the University of São Paulo, as I said, is the largest by far in the country. And it's the largest in South America, number one. And number two, it's also one of the most productive, even in terms of quality. But you know, I don't want to, you know, anyway. So what you see in Brazil in some cases is that people that are working in a particular university in some other places of the country, they have a background from the University of São Paulo. In other words, we have formed, we give 3,000 PhD titles every year. So these people go to all the universities, and they are our, you know, we have this collaboration. The possibility of making influence or attracting these people is very, very large. And the same situation holds for the South America, where some of the students in certain countries, they come to São Paulo, you know, 10% of our foreign students come from South America, Peru, Colombia, etc. Colombia in particular, you know, you can look at Colombia, it's really sorry in terms of scientific, I think it's an interesting case. But I think we do have contact, we have hopefully some leadership, and we can influence them. If you allow me to go, perhaps I shouldn't go that far, but if you allow me, my idea was at this point that maybe we could have an HCA meeting in São Paulo and use that as a catalyzer for attracting, you know, some other institutes that are interested in cell biology.